What is the Golden Company? What is their origin, their association with House Blackfire, and their role in A Song of Ice and Fire? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. On this channel we cover A Song of Ice and Fire, The Lord of the Rings, The Witcher, and much more. If you love in-depth discussion of great fantasy and science fiction, welcome. This video was produced in collaboration with the Wonderful History of Westeros. Please do check out their channel and podcast. There's a link in the description. Boasting 10,000 fighters, the Golden Company is the largest sellsword-free company in the known world. Most are far smaller. The Windblown under the Tattered Prince is at 2,000, the Second Sons under Brown Ben Plum 500, the Brave Companions, aka the Bloody Mummers under Vargo Hoat, were only 100. While their great size makes them all the more formidable and expensive to hire for whatever war you wish to fight in Essos, we are more interested in the Golden Company because of the many ways they interact with the plot of A Song of Ice and Fire and, going back in time, Dunk and Egg. Going back all the way to the first Blackfire Rebellion, 13 years before the first Dunk and Egg story, when Daemon Blackfire was slain on the Redgrass Field, his half-brother Bittersteel rallied the survivors, recovered the symbol of their cause, the Valyrian steel sword Blackfire, and fled overseas with the remainder of Daemon's sons, vowing to continue the fight. The rebellion was over, but the surviving rebels fled across the narrow sea to Tyrosh, which had supported them during the war. Daemon's wife Rohan was Tyroshi herself, making their children Tyroshi as well. Bittersteel himself had already married Daemon's daughter Calla, thus strengthening the ties between them all. They would be safe there for a while. Back in Westeros, the victorious King Diran II and his council, including Bloodraven, formally stripped land and titles from the rebels, zero tolerance. The rebels knew that the only way they could now return was at the point of a sword. They could never return home except as conquerors. Moving forward a few years, then came the events of the Mystery Night, the third Dunk and Egg story. Following a dream, Daemon II Blackfire went to Westeros without an army, thinking to raise one from within and somehow reclaim the throne. Bittersteel saw the plan as folly and did not support it, and he was right. It was an abject failure, partly because of Dunk and Egg, a lot due to Bloodraven, but mostly due to the rather lax approach to planning by the Blackfire pretenders. Bittersteel recognised that if he wanted to finally put a Blackfire on the throne, he'd have to make his own army in Essos to lead the invasion. Thankfully, he had a lot to work with. There were lots of lords and knights and various hangers-on who had been a part of the first Blackfire Rebellion and were now exiled in Essos, their homes and lands in Westeros now confiscated and given to someone else. Many had spent the intervening years fighting for various sellsword companies, meaning they were quite experienced at warfare, but more importantly, they all held a grudge against the current regime in Westeros. An army with a mission. Bittersteel gathered them back together and gave them a purpose. And so, 16 years after the first Blackfire Rebellion, the Golden Company was formed. They would not fade into obscurity after all. They would return again to take back their homes or die trying. Their battle cry became, "Beneath the gold, the bitter steel," in honour of their founder. However, their official motto became, "Our word is as good as gold," because they made it a point of principle to always stick to their contracts. In a cutthroat world, this was rare. Bittersteel led the Golden Company throughout Essos for 7 years, gaining combat experience and earning reputation unlike any other sellsword company. They never once broke a contract, never failed to act professionally, and perhaps most important of all, left a series of victories behind them. Make no mistake, the Golden Company forged a reputation as the gold standard when it came to SOC sellsword companies. And their honour went both ways. When Qohor tried to renege on a payment, Bittersteel ordered an attack on the city itself. They were successful and took payment by way of loot. This was a high-profile moment for them that sent a powerful message. They won't break a contract and expect the same from their employers. Still, Bittersteel and the Golden Company didn't lose sight of their ultimate objective, to return to Westeros and reclaim their lands and inheritance. In the year 219 AC, 23 long years after Bittersteel fled into exile, he returned at the head of the Golden Company, intending to overthrow King Aerys I Targaryen in favour of King Hagon I Blackfire. Many in Westeros took their side, the third Blackfire Rebellion, but the first headed by the Golden Company. The Golden Company was ultimately defeated after a long and difficult struggle against notables like Prince Maekar, his sons Aegon and Aerion, and Bloodraven. Powerful houses like Ironwood and Greyjoy sided with the rebels, at least for a time, but eventually the Golden Company had to retreat back to Essos with their tail between their legs. Bittersteel was captured and allowed to take the Black, but, like a scene from an action movie, he escaped on his way to the Wall, the ship he was on apparently overtaken and boarded by Blackfire sympathisers. In other words, someone on the inside knew exactly when Bittersteel would take ship for the Wall, and passed that information on to the Golden Company. This is notable. Even after the failure of 3 Blackfire rebellions, the Golden Company still had spies and sympathisers in the Red Keep. Cut forward another couple of abortive rebellions. This is how the Golden Company operates today as well. They are not simply a sellsword company. They are a complete self-sufficient military organisation. For example, they have a spymaster to keep them abreast of world news, something no other sellsword company seems to have. His name is Lysono Mar of the Free City of Lys, and they employ everyone they need, from paymasters to cooks to grooms to smiths to squires. They have healthcare, disability pay, and the benefit of membership of the most famous and respected company in the known world. Mess with a member of the Golden Company, and you mess with his 9,999 well-armed brothers. In summary, they aren't just a sellsword company, they remain a community with a shared aim, a grouping of exiles ready to serve and ready to return home as soon as the timing is right. At the time of the Third Blackfire Rebellion, which was only 7 years after the company's founding, they surely looked nearly identical to any other Westerosi army. Ditto the Fourth Blackfire Rebellion of 236 AC, which was another failure, but it appears to have been despite rather than because of the Golden Company's professionalism. 5 years later, in the year 241, with King Aegon V on the throne and Bloodraven Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Bittersteel, the founder and leader of the Golden Company, died, having taken a mortal wound in the Disputed Lands during a forgotten skirmish between Tyrosh and Myr. It seemed as though the Blackfire cause would end with him, leaving the Golden Company as just another sellsword company in Essos. Yet as he lay dying, Bittersteel commanded his men to boil the flesh from his bones, dip his skull in gold, and mount it on a pole. His final command was for the Golden Company to carry his skull on their standard before them as they retook Westeros, whenever that day may come. Those who have followed him as Captain General have continued this tradition. Every fallen Captain General has their skull dipped in gold and planted on a pike, forming a circle around the current Captain General's command tent. Quite the sight. The company is now 88 years old as of A Dance with Dragons, and Bittersteel has been dead for 59 years. 42 years have passed since the Golden Company last attempted to place a Blackfire pretender on the Iron Throne. In total, they tried that 3 times, with their founder Aegor Rivers obviously having tried one more time before that. But during the decades that followed, much has changed with the Golden Company. The Blackfire line is believed in world to have died out with Maelys the Monstrous in 258 AC, so he was the last Blackfire Captain General of the Golden Company. Following him were various other less storied Westerosis, most recently Sir Miles Toyne, called Blackheart. The Toynes were exiled from Westeros back in the time of Aegon IV, whom they tried to assassinate. They failed, but slew Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight in the process. And now the leader is Harry Strickland, a less than impressive figure, and seemingly a company man, born and brought up within the Golden Company like his father and his father before him. The Stricklands were original Blackfire supporters in the first Blackfire Rebellion, fighting hard alongside Bittersteel and the others, but Harry is now heard complaining about blisters on his feet, a red flag that this is not a tough man. John Connington thinks that he is no Blackheart, no Bittersteel, no Maelys. Even young Griff or Aegon refers to him as an old maid. And as another red flag, at one point Strickland says that while waiting for John Connington to arrive, he could have accepted a contract where the company would be paid in slaves, something that would be anathema to true Westerosis, not to mention Daenerys Targaryen. There wasn't even a flicker of suggesting that he didn't want the slaves, just wanting Jon to know what had been given up to join Aegon's new invasion. And it does seem that the original Westerosi exile ethos has been diluted somewhat over the years. For example, there are now quite a few non-Westerosi men among the company's officer corps. The captain of their archer corps is a summer islander called Black Balak. He leads 1,000 men of the 10,000 total. Some wield crossbows, some wield Essosi bows, some wield Westerosi bows, and a few more use the Golden Heart bows of the Summer Islands. Quite a mix. Their paymaster is from Volantis, and their spymaster from Lys. And they have elephants, a strange sight in Westeros, though some have managed to make the crossing across the Narrow Sea with the Golden Company, because yes, the Golden Company are once more attempting to return to Westeros. Which brings us to the innate contradiction of the Golden Company. They were founded as a free company of Westerosi exiles and invaded 3 times in an attempt to return home and reclaim what they view their rightful inheritance. 500 of the company are knights, and they remain core to the company's fighting strength and connection to Westeros, and they retain a formidable reputation as the preeminent sellsword company in Essos. They build orderly, defensible camps every night, operating with schedules, rigid routines, and extensive pre-planning. John Connington notes that these were the heirs of Bittersteel, and discipline was mother's milk to them. They know how to fight. But this is clearly not the same Golden Company that was formed by Aegor Rivers. They are their great-grandchildren, or more. Their personal allegiance to the Blackfire cause is gone with the Blackfire line. Many of them, including several of their senior management team, are not even from Westeros. Their Westerosi values are clearly diluted by decades in exile. Their current Captain General seems more interested in contracts than battle, and although he is honouring the deal struck by his predecessor with Illyrio and John Connington, he doesn't seem enthused by it. John Connington may have been impressed by the Golden Company's military discipline, but he also considers them ghosts and liars, revenants from forgotten wars, lost causes, failed rebellions, a brotherhood of the failed and the fallen, the disgraced and the disinherited. This is my army. This is our best hope. He doesn't sound that optimistic. So there's a balance here. The corruption of the Golden Company's values through weakness and profit motive is significant, but should not be taken as a reason to see the entire company as soft. All of which is to say that although the Golden Company remain an impressive fighting force, this is not a personal mission for them in the way that perhaps Illyrio and even Tyrion think. Tyrion asks Illyrio why the Golden Company, Blackfire loyalists, should fight for Aegon or Daenerys as Targaryens. Illyrio's response is that, black or red, a dragon is still a dragon. When Meleys the Monstrous died upon the stepstones, it was the end of the male line of House Blackfire, and Daenerys will give the exiles what Bittersteel and the Blackfires never could. She will take them home. Illyrio is, of course, hinting that there are still Blackfire descendants from the female line out there. One of those may very well be young Griff, as we discussed in Is Griff a Blackfire, but Illyrio simultaneously asserts that it doesn't really matter, because a dragon is a dragon. The exiles want lordships and lands. They don't care all that much who leads them to it. John Connington, a member of the company for 5 years, introduces Prince Aegon, clearly expecting a response, but they seem unsurprised, prompting John Connington to realise that they already know young Griff's identity and they don't really care. There is no bending of the knee to a true king, nor bearing of steel to an enemy of the Blackfires. As Illyrio said, fake, real, Targaryen or Blackfire, he's a ticket to Westeros. They may be supporting him because of the historical ties of the Golden Company or agreements by previous Captains General, and they may have broken a contract for the first time in their 88-year history to do so, but to most of them, this is just a job, not personal. If they want to get to Westeros, this is the time to do it. It is time to win or die. And it's probably the pragmatically wise move to side with the people who have dragons. Of course, going against dragons ended them in moments on the TV show, but they are unlikely to line up in tight formation to make Drogon's job easy in the books. They haven't faced a dragon before, but they are probably wise enough not to take one head-on. Not that they will wait for Dany. She has disappeared into the Dothraki Sea, and they've lost enough contracts already just waiting for her and John Connington. So it is on to the Stormlands, a sensible place to start given that Renly is dead, Stannis is headed north with his army, and Jon Connington will be well known there. And judging from the pre-released chapters from the Winds of Winter, they are doing well. Several castles have fallen, including Storm's End. We'll cover off whether Aegon's new invasion will be a success in the final part of this rather slow and ad hoc series of videos, but for now let's focus on the Golden Company. If they were the original Golden Company, we might expect them to support young Griff because he is the rightful Blackfyre heir, and when the Iron Throne is won, we might expect them therefore to disband. They are a free company of exiles, not a true sellsword company, and once they have returned home and had their lands and honour returned to them, there is no reason for them to stay together. But this isn't the Golden Company of old. They are led by a company man. They appear unbothered by the reveal of young Griff's identity. Several of their leaders aren't even Westerosi. What will they do when Daenerys arrives with dragons? In contrast to what happened on the TV show, they are an experienced and renowned company of professional fighters. Surely they will have enough sense not to just line up in straight lines for Drogon to firebomb. Assuming they keep to young Griff's side. They've broken one contract, why not another? They don't seem to have any particular allegiance to young Griff because he's a Blackfyre, or perhaps that information died with Miles Toyne, their last leader who met with Illyrio and Jon Connington. Perhaps to them he's just another Targaryen. Young Griff's whole claim on the throne stems from that, and certainly he seems to believe it. But why side with the Targaryen without any dragons? The Golden Company are a deliberate grey area in George R. R. Martin's world, a world of contradictions. They have never broken a contract, and yet they have now. For someone they seem very underwhelmed to meet. Why? They are led by a very unimpressive Captain General, but still remain professional and unbeaten in combat. They play up their credentials as Westerosi exiles, but most of them have never even set foot in Westeros, and some of their senior leadership have no connection to there. Plenty of them claim Westerosi surnames and therefore inheritances that are very clearly not theirs, or with very clearly overlapping inheritance claims if they even were true, Lothstons, Strongs and Peaks. The contradictions abound, which makes it very hard to see exactly where their story will go in the last couple of books. For now, they are the focus of young Griff's invading army, and there's no reason to think that they will give that up easily. It is early days, but their plan seems to be working so far. Key strongholds have fallen to them, and the enemies of the Lannisters are exploring potential alliances. What then? Well, let's save that for the last video in this series, but for now the key question is, how bought in are the Golden Company? How loyal are they to Aegon VI? Would they fight to the death, disband once they get back the lands they claim on mainland Westeros, or break another contract when the dragons come? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you'd like to see more A Song of Ice and Fire videos, please click on the link to my playlist appearing now on the left of your screen. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.